Hi there, my name's Andrew Chubb. I'm the CEO of Awalé Resources. We're a TSX-V listed explorer in West Africa, specifically in Cote d'Ivoire. And we are defining a new sort of world-class gold and copper gold district in the northwest of the country. So I'm just going to give you a overview of the company and where we are and what we're doing. The usual forward-looking statements here. I won't go through those. The first thing is, I guess, everyone asks why you look at a particular explorer and what sets us apart from other junior companies. So I think the first thing is, we have a significant district scale foothold in what is now one of the world's premier gold producing provinces on the globe. So West Africa now has a more than 300 million ounce gold inventory, and we have secured just under 2,500 square kilometres of tenure in granted permits and applications up in the northwest of Cote d'Ivoire. We're a highly experienced team of explorers. We're very systematic about how we approach our exploration, and I personally have many years' experience in West Africa, and our Ivorian team is a fantastic team as well. And beyond this, we have also on 2 of the permits, so there is actually 7 permits. 2 of those permits are joint ventured with Newmont. And I need to update this presentation as Newmont has just yesterday, we closed the financing and they've moved to a 15.5% stake in the Topco. And they have funded 5,000 meters of drilling so far in 2023, but we have also received an increase in the $3 million budget for 2023 by $750,000 actually, so not an insignificant increase in the joint venture budget, and we've just recommenced drilling as we speak on the Odienné project. So that will continue throughout the holiday period that's coming up now. And then beyond that, previous to today, we've already delivered multiple high-grade gold discoveries as well as a copper gold discovery on the project. And we expect to, keep working on those and creating a strong news flow throughout 2024. Again, this corporate summary is a little bit out of date as of yesterday, but so now we're sitting at about 65 million shares outstanding subsequent to the financing, which closed yesterday, and sort of 12.5 million warrants as well. But so Newmont has now come to 15%. And Sandstorm would have diluted back, and AllCap would have diluted back as well as the insiders and institutions. But we do have a very tightly held share structure and well poised from that point of view as well for hopefully increases in share price and future financings. So the financing that we've just undertaken with Newmont is just under $1 million Canadian dollars, and that is going to be partially dedicated to exploring our 100% Awalé permits, which sit outside the joint venture, and we'll drill down on that as we move forward. So this is our team with myself as CEO. We had quite a few changes back in May. Where I stepped up into the CEO role. I have been involved in Awalé since its inception, but actually stepped up into the CEO role in May. And that was a financing through AllCap with Stephen Stewart, who has now come onto the board, along with Charles Beaudry as another technical person on the board. And Robin Birchall actually came in on the board at the end of at the end of in December 2022. So we have quite a new setup. Dirk has always been there, but really myself and the others are new on the board, and so Awalé has a new outlook for the company. On the ground, we have Carla Quayson, Andrew Smith, and Sharon Cooper is our CFO. She's actually based in Australia. So now just sort of coming down to look at the projects that we have. So this is showing us up in the northwest of Cote d'Ivoire. So the inset down here, you can see Cote d'Ivoire, which sits right in the middle of West Africa. And the Odienné project area sits up in the northwest, close to the borders of Mali and Guinea. As mentioned, we've got just under 2,500 square kilometres in 7 permits. 2 of those permits, the ones outlined here in black, are joint ventured with Newmont. And the Odienné East permit, which is this guy here, is the one where we've had our exploration focus for the last couple of years, and is where we have made those significant discoveries. And so the new funding, we will push to have these permits granted and continue exploration on those. And this permit over here is we have an option agreement. It's another granted permit, and we have already commenced doing some early stage geochemistry on that project, which we'll have results for in the new year as well. So this slide sort of is drilling down on that Odienné East permit. I will just pop back and remind you, this is the Odienné East permit sitting here. It's 400 square kilometres. All these permits are up to 400 square kilometres. Some of them are a fraction less, but most of them are roughly 400 square kilometres. So this is that Odienné East permit in the black box here. Underneath, it's a 3D model of detailed aerial magnetics. You can see there are sort of multiple intrusions that come up into the permit area, and actually throughout the project area there are these intrusions, and they're an important part of our mineralization story as well. But so I guess these 3 projects here, Empire, Charger, and Sceptre East, are our 3 major discoveries. We have since drilled BBM and Lando, which we have results pending for. The core looks very nice in those, and we hope to be announcing at least 1 more discovery out of those 2, perhaps even 2 in January of next year. So Empire was our first discovery. It's a high-grade gold discovery. The discovery hole was 15 meters at 13 grams per ton. There are multiple plus 100 gram intercepts within that Empire discovery. And then we actually moved a little bit further afield following this structural corridor. We had high order anomalism here at this charger target. And we've drilled there and had our second discovery where we've got plus 100 gram meter intercepts as well. And I guess the interesting part about the story is when we went to Charger, we thought we would be drilling something very similar to Empire. Some of the surface expressions of the geology that we saw there were similar to Empire. What happened was that we did see some geology similar to Empire in the drilling, but we also drilled this magnetite hematite breccia, which opened the idea of the district being a copper gold district and potentially IOCG related. And so IOCG is iron oxide copper gold, is what that stands for. And iron oxide copper gold districts are major global metal contributors for both copper, gold, silver, and depending on where you are, molybdenum and other elements as well. But these districts might include the Olympic Dam district and the Mount Isa district in Australia, the Carajás province in Brazil are three major IOCG provinces that we've gone back and looked at and looked at where we are as a crustal setting in geology, which we can drill down on later on if we want. The setting that we have is quite similar, and some of the subsequent slides will have a little bit of a discussion about that. But the third discovery is here at Sceptre East. It's a very large area. We're getting sort of more, I guess, porphyry style mineralization. So with copper and gold grades at the 0.3 to 0.5%, but extremely broad widths of mineralization. So the deepest hole we've drilled there at the moment is a 365 meter hole, where we actually had 358.5 meters of mineralization from pretty much from surface, from 6.5 meters down hole at 0.34% copper equivalent. So that's another interesting target, which is a little bit different to Empire and Charger, and but really fits within the same alteration framework, and is all part of this larger system. Sort of stepping back out again, and we're stepping a long way out here. So this is, I guess, a satellite image sort of view, a few hundred square kilometers across in this. So this image would be sort of close to 1,500 kilometers from end to end, and even more in this image over here, which is looking at both the West African continent and the South American, or the African continent and the South American continent. And really, I'm just depicting the similarities in age of rocks and the setting between older Archean material, or Archean cratons, which is shown in purple, and the surrounding Proterozoic volcanic and sedimentary belts that abut these older cratons. And so we see this similarity at Carajás in Brazil, to Odienné, as well as sort of the Mount Isa district in Australia, and the Olympic Dam district in Australia have similarities in these crustal settings. And the image to the left is really just a drill down on West Africa. As I said before, it's more than a 300 million ounce province now, there are multiple tier 1 plus 5 to 10 million ounce resources and reserves that are being that will be mined or are currently being mined, and we believe that the Odienné district has the potential to move into those realms. and as mentioned, that's actually supported by Newmont, who can see this concept, and look, the recent upgrade in their investment in Awalé, as well as the increase in joint venture budget, is sort of shows the Newmont interest and belief in the story that Awalé Resources is developing down there. This slide is just a little bit of a further drill down, trying to show you that we are in a land of large deposits. The structure that we sit on at Odienné, we actually believe continues through into this is Guinea out here, and up towards Western Mali up here. There are lots of similarities in the geology between the Odienné district, this district here in Guinea, where the new +5 Bankan is now more than 5 million, is on the cusp of 5 million ounces, and up here in Western Mali, the Loulo-Gountoco complex, Sadiola and others. Many people will know about those. Loulo-Gountoco is now is now Barrick, but formerly Randgold. There are similarities between those places and our Odienné district as well. Just to the south of us, about 50 kilometres south, on the same structure, the Centamin has now got a plus 2 million ounce discovery down there called the ABC project. So we are in the right territory. So this slide is just drilling down again. So now we've sort of gone from flying around at sort of satellite levels. This is sort of a drill down to 20, 30,000 feet level on the project area of Odienné East, and just showing where those discoveries are, and all the geochemistry and systematic work that we've done over the permits, showing the Empire, Charger, and Sceptre East discoveries. The Sceptre East is part of a greater 20 kilometre square or 5 kilometre long, 4 kilometre wide copper anomaly, and there is gold anomalism all along that as well. It's definitely zone mineralization from copper rich to the east and more gold rich to the west, and we see this alteration zonation throughout the district. Just to the north of us, actually up here, Toraka has a permit which they recently drilled, and they've got gold intercepts up there in a very broad-spaced initial air core of up to 20, 30 meters at a gram, and that is a continuation of this base and margin structure that we've drilled here at BBM and Lando. The same structure, it continues up to where they've intercepted some nice mineralization as well. So we're definitely sitting on a framework of fertile structures in the area, and it's pretty exciting stuff for us when we consider the district scale and deep tapping nature of these structures. And I guess that's something about what we do. Just going back to here, what we do is we strive to deliver high quality targets. So when we come to the actual drilling point, we have carefully scrutinized our geochemistry, our mapping, those early stage geology things that we do, to try and ensure that we have a high success rate when we start to drill. And I think when we've looked at our 25,000 meters of drilling that we've completed on the project to date, something like 80% of those holes, 85% of those holes are mineralized, and I think 70% of those holes are actually mineralized at what we would call all grade, so that sort of plus 1 gram per ton sort of intercepts. So we work really hard at making sure that anything we drill is a high quality target and has potential of delivering future discoveries. So now I'm just going to sort of slowly, in order, I guess, of discovery, have a quick drill down on the 3 main discovery areas and some of the new targets that we've drilled. So the first one is Empire, which is down here in the south. This is a long section through Empire. We didn't have Newmont funding at this stage. This is all self-funded drilling where we have multiple high-grade intercepts. We only drilled it to an open pit sort of depth. So on the left there, you can see this vertical depth of these holes is only 125 meters. We have multiple high-grade intercepts within there. The purple colors, are plus 100 gram meters. The lighter purple is plus 50 gram meters, and so on. This what we actually have done here is put this to one side for the moment, and Empire will come back into the story as we start to move into resource development and resource drilling throughout 2024 and 2025. It's definitely got down plunge potential, and some of the follow-up exploration drilling we did as step outs to Empire, we have intercepted mineralization with the same alteration and the same host rocks, but slightly deeper, and we think that will become part of this Empire story and it will come in as part of a resource inventory in the project. This slide's just stepping slightly further north to Charger, where I discussed we intercepted hematite breccias. I don't have a photo of the hematite breccias here, but we have other magnetite, chloride, actinolite breccias that you can see in these three photos, as well as the visible gold that is there. The grades that you can see there pertain to that actual meter that those photos are taken within, so they're not the intercepts. The intercepts are much broader, 20 to 30 meters at 2 to 3 grams per ton, plus copper, plus silver in these. And you can see this is a cross section where you can see these things are open at depth. And the drilling that we're about to undertake at Charger, we have extra holes here that are testing this frame, a newly interpreted structural framework, which we think possibly controls these breccia pipes. So the program that we're undertaking right now is pretty interesting, and I think may help us unravel the size potential of Charger. And hopefully continue to drill, these high grade gold intercepts that we've had in the past at Charger. This is just a cross section of that deep hole at Sceptre. It's the only hole that's sort of drilled this deep. The other holes are sort of only down to roughly 120 to 150 meters vertical depth. This one gets us down to about 200 meters vertical depth. And as you can see, there is, as I mentioned before, there is 358 meters of copper molybdenum gold mineralization. And it helped us to understand that there are north-south structural controls as well as northwest structural controls at Charger, which we believe actually might control the gold mineralization as well. And the spacing of the drilling that we've done is, on 200 to 400 meters. So far, and so we've only drilled a handful of holes into this target, and future drilling will sort of focus on the north-south orientations, and there is opportunity to find both higher grade copper and gold mineralization within the Sceptre discovery, the Sceptre East discovery, that would help drive Sceptre as a valid large-scale target within the project. This is just coming back, stepping back out again. This year, so all the early interpretation that we've done was based on very regional geophysics. This year we did fly detailed magnetics, which has really helped us unravel the structural framework of the Odienné project area. And we have these large northwest trending deep-seated structures that we believe are really controlling the fluid, which are the fluid pathways for the project area. And we look at it as a hybrid model. So IOCG models are often intrusive related. And definitely the alteration and mineralization fingerprints that we have appear to be intrusion related. But again, all the intrusions and everything that happens in these late intrusions that are helping to drive the mineralization, they are controlled by this pre-existing older structural framework that we have in the area. This is just sort of again drilling back down on that Sceptre area. So I talked about the Sceptre East discovery, which just forms a sort of 1.5 kilometer long eastern portion of a broader 5 kilometer long copper gold anomaly. And as I mentioned, as we move further west, we have much higher tenor gold geochemistry, and also rock chip sampling and things like that of small artisanal workings out there have delivered much higher grade gold results as well. So that's another target for us that we need to build up as we move forward. And And then moving on into the next target, which I said we've drilled only 2 holes into. Those holes look particularly interesting. We have chalcopyrite molybdenite mineralization in those holes, and rock chip sampling in the area has delivered some high grade gold as well, up to 4.8 grams per ton. This is a massive footprint. It's 4 kilometers long. And up to 1.5 to 2 kilometers wide. And these size footprints have the potential to deliver standalone, 1 to 2 million ounce equivalent deposits as well. So the initial 2 holes are encouraging, and in the current drill, they look interesting. And in the current drill program, based on what we've seen in the geology, we have planned an extra sort of 4 to 6 holes into this to try and develop our understanding of Lando and bring it into line as a new discovery for the company. This next one is the BBM target. Again, it's probably a bit confusing on where all these are, but BBM actually is associated with the same structure as Lando. It's another large 4 kilometer long footprint. We drilled 4 holes into this target. Those 4 holes look interesting with hematite breccias, and these are overprinted by strong silica alteration with sulfides. Again, chalcopyrite, pyrite, molybdenite mineralization, which is similar to the other things that we've drilled that we know are gold rich and with copper. And we are expecting to see similar results from the BBM target as well. And again, so this is another potential multi-million, 1 to 2 million ounce plus size anomaly. And again, the drilling that we're doing now, based on what we've seen, we're doing some infill lines. Those lines, we drilled 4 holes here, which were 400 or 500 meters apart. So with the extra funding that we've got based on the mineralization that we've seen visually, we are coming back in to do some more drilling here at BBM as well. So just a quick summary, I guess, of where we are. We're on the cusp of what I would call resource development drilling, which is really trying to understand the size potential and structural framework, the geology around our discoveries, and seeing if we can quickly move those into actual resource drilling. So the drilling that we're doing now is the first step towards that resource development drilling, trying to understand size and scope of these discoveries that we have, and so that leads into resource drilling and initial resources for the company. So we hope to complete 3,000 to 4,000 meters in this current round of drilling, and then getting those results in. We plan to have a second bite at those for 2024 before the commencement of the wet season in July, August. So we're looking at 10,000 plus meters of drilling in 2024 on the Odienné East permit, and with the funding that we've secured now, as mentioned, we can start that early stage exploration on our surrounding 100% Awalé properties, and look to have them drill ready in the subsequent field season. So that would be in 2024, 2025, or 2025 half one drill season. We would hope to have a few targets in those 100% Awalé permits to conduct some initial scout drilling on those as well. So there's a pretty exciting year ahead for us with that progress towards resource development drilling at Sceptre, Charger, potentially BBM and Lando, if they come through with the results we have coming out next year, and the drilling that we're doing now, and then as mentioned, applying. The nice thing with having this Newmont joint venture is we've, as a company, been able to do some really first-class exploration, develop our understanding of the model and the district, and what works for us from an exploration perspective, whether that be soil sampling, termite area sampling, styles of geophysics like IP or gravity, and we can start to apply those to our 100% Awalé permit. So we've developed a lot of intellectual property in the district, which helps us develop those new permits in a cost-effective and discovery-effective manner. So I think we've got some pretty exciting times through 2024 and into 2025, and with we're expecting a budget of $3 to $4 million again from Newmont for the joint venture for this year, and we're on a path with this initial funding from Newmont to securing a decent amount of funding towards the exploration on the surrounding properties as well. So significant budgets for us in that $3 to $5 million range for that's US dollars as well for 2024. Which is very exciting for a junior company, and that's one of the things that I think sets us aside from many of the other juniors is that support from Newmont on those joint venture properties just enables us to put us a little bit of a step ahead with regards to where we are as a company. The Newmont joint venture is on those two permits is a phased $15 million spend for 65% of the projects, and an option to buy there is a local partner who has 10% of that project, that joint venture project only, and there is an option for Newmont to buy that 10% to take them to 75%, and Awalé will be at 25% at the end of a $15 million spend. So the phase one spend is $5 million, and the phase two spend is 10 million, bringing them to that 15. We expect to be at the end of that $5 million spend sometime toward the end of Q1 2024. The way we're progressing the joint venture, there is an expectation that we will just move forward. With the continued success that we've been having, we'll just move forward into that phase two, where Newmont will sit at a 51% interest and continue to spend money on the properties. Thanks very much for that, and I'll hand that back over to you now, Jasper.
Thank you for an excellent presentation, Andrew. We will now begin with a Q&A session, which consists of 3 pillars: management and board, the Odienné project, and strategy. In the first pillar, we will discuss CEO Andrew Chubb's track record, insider ownership, the history of Awalé, and how he has built a team, which is a crucial part for an exploration company. So, Andrew, could you tell us who you are and walk us through your career?
Sure. Well, I'm a geologist by trade, I am Australian. So I studied in Australia and started my career in, as many Australians do, in the goldfields of Western Australia, and worked for multiple or a few companies in Australia, learning about orogenic greenstone belts and all those sorts of things as a young geologist, both in the junior mining sector and spent a bit of time working on a large gold camp, which is called the Kambalda camp, which is Goldfields now, formerly WMC, many years ago. But that's a multi-million ounce camp. I can't remember how many, but it's on the Golden Mile, just to the south of the Kalgoorlie super pit. But it's sort of plus 10 to 20 million ounces, I think, now. I haven't actually looked for a while. And still continues as a major operation. And so learnt about big gold camps working there, and moved on to working overseas. So I worked in the Golden Quadrilateral of Eastern Europe in Romania for a while, at Rocha Montana and the surrounding exploration there, and and also been in North Africa working on lead zinc things, and throughout and smattered in between that, I'd been in West Africa a few times as a consultant. And then in 2010, I actually went into West Africa pretty much permanently, and have been associated with West Africa since then. So I had my first trip into West Africa in 2003-04 summer, Australian summer, I suppose, and or the field season of 2003-04. But I lived in Burkina Faso from 2010 to the start of 2015, and ran an exploration company as an exploration manager there during that 5 years, and ran projects in Burkina, Liberia, and Niger, and have also worked as a consultant throughout West Africa a lot. So I've pretty much worked in most West African countries, I think, now. So Ghana as well. I mentioned Liberia, a little bit in Senegal. Have worked in Mali, in Western Mali, and Southern Mali as well. So I've had a few discoveries along the way and things like that, and just So have a broad knowledge of a very good knowledge now of West African geology, I would say, and that really sort of helps me immensely in running a junior mining company in those jurisdictions, as well as the experience working in those jurisdictions, knowing how things work politically and all those sorts of things as well is pretty helpful.
What would you consider to be your greatest achievements in your career?
We delivered I was the exploration manager for a large feasibility study in Mali. I guess I stepped into that role there was post discovery, and they were moving into that resource development stage. So sort of that was really quite cool. So I got to step into a team of 120 odd people, working on a large scale feasibility study, which was actually called the Mantra. It was a uranium project in southern Tanzania, by an Australian company called Mantra, and the project's called Makuji River, and that got sold to Uranium One, which is, I think, one of the subsidiaries of Severstal, the Russian entity. But yeah, so that was a really big operation, and it's always good to follow something that large scale through. And working with all levels of the resource development guys, the resource guys, the mining guys, the metallurgy guys, all that sort of thing is a really important part of understanding what a deposit looks like, and what things that might turn out to be economic or might not. Along the way, I've had a few gold discoveries and things like that, but no major, like, things that have turned into major gold mines, but things that have been mined by over the years. So that's but yeah, I think that's one of the big ones for me.
How many shares do you personally own in Awalé Resources?
I think I've got a couple of percent. I haven't looked at exactly what that is. Sorry, Jasper, but yeah, I'd have a couple of percent of Awalé. I'd actually like to have more, but that's just how it is. I think directors and management, we all sit at somewhere between 15 and 20% at the moment. So we're all keen to make Awalé work. That's for sure.
Could you give us an overview? How have you built the team, both the in-country exploration team at Odienné and also the top-level management at Awalé?
As I said, look, I actually have been associated with Awalé since it was listed by Glenn Parsons, who was the former CEO. And I guess for me, on the ground, a lot of it is it's all organic, really. So you have a network of people, you meet people, you talk to people and find people who are interested in working with you or me, and that's how it's developed. And so now we have a really good Ivorian team, from senior geologists through to junior geologists, and it's really nice actually on the project. One of the little things that I've always sort of said is really you're only as good as your junior geologists. They do a lot of the on ground grunt work, and when we have people on site, it's really nice to have them. We let them present to people who really know their stuff, and it's good to see them, have confidence in the work that they're doing, and that's sort of that's always a really good thing to see is these young couple of years out of university people presenting the work they do to people who come to site, and so that's great as well. But as part of the team, we've got Ivorian guys who have got fantastic experience as well. Our senior geologist there, he's worked with bigger Australian companies like Resolute, and he has got fantastic Ivorian experience. We recently recruited a guy out of Barrick, and he'd sort of had 8 or 9 years with Barrick. And so, Mark he's also got fantastic grounding, and has been he's been with us for nearly a year now, and he's been a fantastic addition to the team. But they're just sort of organic things through talking to people, and people, as a geologist, you do sort of look for change. So Mark was sort of, I guess, ripe for wanting to look at some different geology and work with a different team. So it was nice to sort of bring him on board, and they're really good for training the young guys as well. We have recently lost Andrew Smith, chief geologist. I've got some people in mind to replace him, and they're good, well experienced people as well, and people that I know. But Andrew has been instrumental, and we were sort of he got an opportunity he couldn't refuse, and that's these things happen throughout people's careers. But Andrew has been definitely instrumental in putting the team together that we have now. And on the discussions that I had with him, him moving on, which he's a very good friend as well. So. But he is leaving us in a really good position to move forward as well. Like I said, we've made those discoveries. We've potentially got 2 new ones on our doorstep, and we're sitting in a really good position. And so those things grow organically for me. On the corporate side, as I mentioned, there were lots of changes in May. Awalé did go through a pretty rocky period in the lead up to that financing in May, and in that financing, the CEO did step aside. Glenn did step aside. Glenn is still a major shareholder of the company, and wants to see success of the company as well. So that's great. And with that, with AllCap, we got Stephen Stewart on board, and Stephen is a very experienced person with junior companies in Canada, TSX listed companies. He sits on boards of other companies that he's invested in as well, and we're not quite. I guess we're not in the stable of all cap companies, but we're sort of there because they are heavily invested in us. And Stephen and QC Copper as well. So Charles is the technical director for or VP exploration for QC Copper. Charles is a really interesting addition for us because an Awalé investor made a person who I had spoken to as an Awalé investor sort of led to the introduction to Stephen, but those initial discussions about the Odienné district as an emerging iron oxide copper gold district sort of piqued Charles Baudry's interest because his background is actually Carajás. And he was involved with a company called Noranda in the very early days of the Carajás district. And him, when he took a look at, the geochemistry and the things that we had been doing and the results that we had been producing in the Odienné district, he immediately saw similarities, crustal setting, geology, and the geochemistry that we were producing to what he was seeing in Carajás in the early days, so 20, 30 years ago in the Carajás province. So, that's really quite quite cool. And another sort of addition alongside, the Newmont interest in the district is having someone like Charles on board who has been, seen the growth of an iron oxide copper gold district from start to finish. So, he's a great addition, been a great addition as well. And beyond that, Robin and, Dirk Hartman, he's been involved with Awalé since inception and actually had the initial Awalé company. So he had been with Carla Quayson, who was our country advisor, had formed an Ivorian entity called Awalé and had some projects which were the things that we started off with in Cote d'Ivoire. Look, the focus has shifted away from those initial projects, and I guess that's testament to the way we do things as well. In that I'm talking a lot, but in that we like to do our exploration systematically, and what was formerly a flagship project for the company over in Bonduku, we did the work there, and we don't really feel like it's got the potential to deliver. We're not going to get, as some geologists, probably get hung up on projects, but, I couldn't, Andrew Smith and I couldn't really quickly, have a projection to large scale resources at that project. So we just had to move that to one side, because what we were seeing at Odienné was really showing us something different and something interesting and something that might have the potential to really drive the company forward. And I think with the work that we've done in the last 18 months, that work has actually really driven the position of the company forward. Unfortunately, not in the share price, but I think that will come. So that's where Dirk comes in. So he's been with the company since inception, and he actually brought Robin Birchall into the fold late last year. And Robin is an experienced campaigner with junior companies as well. And comes in from the banking sector, formerly BMO. Dirk is actually formerly BMO as well. And, those guys, bring a wealth of corporate knowledge and operational knowledge into our board as well. So really happy for me, being a new CEO, to be surrounded by those kinds of people. It helps me a lot, knowing that I have the support of a group of people like that.
Excellent. And so, as you said, you mentioned that Andrew Smith is leaving. I've spoken to him. I got a very good impression. As you said, he has been instrumental to the company. He also lived in Abidjan, so he was often on site. So how are you thinking in terms of finding a replacement for him?
As I mentioned, I hope to replace him organically through a network. To get the right person that fits. From a personality and a geology perspective. So that's the aim currently, rather than sort of trying to cast a big wide net out and having to sort of vet many potential candidates. The idea is that hopefully I can fill his boots with somebody that I know that is a good fit for the company and will rapidly understand the way that we work and have a relatively seamless transition from that perspective. I mean, in the meantime, as I mentioned, the guys that we've got on the ground, they're a fantastic group of men and women, and they know what they're doing.
So when do you expect to have a new chief geologist in place?
Hopefully in the new year, January, February. I can't say, exactly when, the right person will be able to fall into that place. But that's what I'm hoping for is to have somebody sitting in that role in January, February.
Could you just walk us through the history of Awalé Resources?
The initial history of Awalé is really is through Glenn Parsons, the former CEO. And Glenn was the managing director of a company called Mariana, who had a large discovery in Turkey called Hod Maden. And Hod Maden became a target for Sandstorm Gold, for this royalty company Sandstorm. And they took over took over Mariana in 2017, I think it was a $260 million deal. And at that same time was when I was helping, looking at projects for Mariana in West Africa, or particularly in Cote d'Ivoire. And so Mariana had already taken on what is now the 2 joint venture permits in Odienné and the Bonduku project. And one other project which we actually let go of as well a couple of years ago. And so when Mariana was taken over, those projects actually went into Sandstorm, and Glenn worked with Sandstorm to bring those companies back out. And Sandstorm actually came in as a cornerstone investor in the Newco. And Awalé Resources was born out of that in late 2017. With that Bonduku project as the focus project. And then sort of that's how those things continued on. And I came on as the CEO or, exploration manager or however you would, my official title was COO, but for me, it was really just being an exploration manager and starting to put together that team on the ground, recruited Andrew Smith and those sorts of things and got the team together and got started on exploration. Through that, we had a couple of financings. Sandstorm stayed in as a cornerstone investor in those subsequent financings. They are now diluting. They've changed their strategy with regard to a lot. They made a lot of junior investments back then, and they subsequently changed their strategy and are diluting out of a lot of those. They still hold a 2% royalty over that joint venture project, but not on the 100% Awalé permits in the Odienné district. And then I guess we just continued on that journey as a junior company. And like I said, we had some difficulties in sort of 2021, 2022. And I guess in that lead up is what led to the change in May this year. Sort of bringing in a bit of a refreshment of the company and some new blood and new financing and repositioning the company. So that's what I've done is done a lot of work on the inside of the company, I guess, repositioning ourselves for 2024. And we did have a lot of debt and various other things. And so I've been, I've worked through that and we're ready now. We're ready to really try and advance things in 2024, 2025.
We have now arrived at the second pillar of Awalé's investment case. Here we will in detail go through the Odienné project and discoveries that have been made on it. We will ask what areas they will focus on in the upcoming drilling program, what would make Newmont content to move into resource definition drilling, and much more. So with Odienné, your first discovery was the Empire discovery. From my understanding, more of a traditional sheer orogenic gold system, and you had some solid results, approximately 30 meters over 3.1 grams per ton, something like that, gold, and some other solid, especially for West Africa, solid drill results. Why did you stop drill Empire and not continue?
I guess it's partially funding related and looking at things from a very junior company perspective. But the initial thing that the initial Empire discovery that we drilled, despite it having a definite down dip continuity, the initial drilling that we did, we only sort of got about 200 meters of strike, and we subsequently just did, looked at the geophysics and the geochemistry that we did, and we drilled a couple of holes on what which was a southeast extension, a potential southeast extension, and got mineralization, but it was more than 60 meters below surface. It would fit into an underground sort of situation at Odienné if the grades were okay, and there's no reason why you wouldn't get similar grades. But for a junior company to be drilling those deep holes, it's expensive, and so we took the decision that we'd made a significant discovery and shown that there is high grade fluid flow in the project area, which is a really important thing to establish to start with. And that's something that Newmont got Newmont interested in as well as an initial thing, is just seeing those sort of multiple plus 100 gram meter intercepts is always a very positive thing at an early stage of a project area. And then so we sort of effectively just put it on ice for the time being, with the idea that okay, let's go and take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and that's when we went in to drill Charger, on that same structural corridor. We're just off that structural corridor, and really the model that we had, as I said, then as you said, was orogenic. And despite we knew that there was still copper anomalism associated, we saw, copper and galena and other base metals as accessory minerals in the drilling, but had solidly had that orogenic model, and then drilled Charger, got something completely different, started to think about things differently, and starting to try and we didn't take that, well, Andrew and I definitely didn't take that lightly as geologists, because you are putting yourself, I guess, out on a bit of a limb when you come and say, hang on a minute, we're in West Africa, but we think we've got something that's pretty different to what everyone else usually talks about. So, I made many phone calls to my colleagues and people that I know that have worked in not just Australian IOCG provinces, but other global ones, started opening discussions with them. And we had initial geochemistry from Rangold. They did some soil sampling over, parts, like broad scale, 1 kilometre spaced, big broad spaced, big company soil sampling in the district in the mid-90s. And when I'd looked at that, when we took on the project, it was obvious in those that there was copper, silver, nickel, lead, zinc anomalism in their geochemistry, but at that juncture didn't understand what that actually meant. It looked really interesting in the geochemistry, but we didn't, so you put those, that's the thing, like you don't ever discard anything, but if you can't explain it, we just sort of put that on the shelf, continued with that exploration model. But then after drilling Charger, it was like, oh, hang on, we've got copper, we've got silver, so let's pull all that data back off the shelf and then start drilling down into that. What does this really mean? And that's what led us into the whole intrusion related IOCG sort of hybrid model. Like I said, all these things are still structurally controlled. And the further work that we did actually at Empire, there's a lot more molybdenum there than you think. So we didn't really see visually molybdenum or molybdenite. But when we did all the petrography and geochemistry, you can actually see molybdenum intimately related with the free gold mineralization. And so there is still a fingerprint at Empire that actually fits that broader district scale framework that I'm talking about. And when you get these big districts, you get different little, different end members of that. It's like on a continuum of the same system, but you might get more copper in some areas, more gold in others, but they all still are part of that bigger alteration system and that system evolving.
If you would actually go ahead and delineate a resource at Empire, how deep would you have to drill? Since you said that you would have to drill more down depth.
Look, if the grade carries, you can go as far as you want. You mentioned Fortuna. That's a classic there, really, because the satellite things that they've got around, I can't think of the name right now, but the antenna pit is really sort of 500,000 ounces in the reserve.
Yeah, they have the Sunbird, for instance.
Yeah, and then they've got Ancien and these other things. They're small strike. They look, from a gold perspective, they look similar to Empire. So they're short strike length, high grade, and they're drilling those, down to a couple of 100 meters plus now, because they're looking at those as underground resources. So, Empire definitely looks like it's got that kind of plunge. You saw from the long section I showed you before. So, to step back and drill under at Empire, and then, like I said, that offset that we intercepted some mineralization. We got a couple of grams, I can't remember, but 5 or 6 meters at 2 to 3 grams per ton, in an initial couple of holes at that depth. So we would still go plan drilling to chase something like that as well.
What districts would be a good equivalent to Odienné?
Yeah, so Carajás in Brazil, definitely, and the ages of the Brazilian, the ages of the rocks in that northern South America. So from Brazil up through, Guyana, Suriname, all that. The once when most people, or many people, would have heard of Gondwana. All these rocks formed pre-Gondwana, but it was really after Gondwana breakup that South America. The idea is that South America and West Africa were actually joined together, and so the Guyana Shield rocks are extensions or the same as the Birimian rocks in West Africa, and there are those two cratons. So there is the Leomang craton in West Africa and the Amazonia craton in Brazil, and so the setting of Carajás and Odienné is exactly the same. So right on the edge of that the Amazonia craton or the Leomang craton in Africa, and where you get those craton margins, you get these big, old, deep tapping structures, and where you have these big, old, deep tapping structures are where you find or tend to find big deposit districts.
A follow up to that. So I mean, if you compare Odienné with Carajás, for example, Sceptre East and Sceptre Main, you have still not seen. You have seen sort of up to half of the grade that they're seeing at Carajás. Do you still think that that type of grade could exist within Sceptre East and Sceptre Main, just that you have to find it, or
we've done very little drilling, so again, Carajás, the actual Carajás province is hundreds of kilometres, and so what we've drilled is tens of kilometres. The prospect, I mean, that Odienné East permit is 30 kilometres long and 12 kilometres wide. So the short answer to that is yes. We've only just scratched the surface. And in a lot of cases, like a charger, as we've drilled deeper, we've actually got better grades as well. I think we've only just scratched the surface of a lot of these things, and we're still learning. We are still learning, but I think we can bring some of these early discoveries along quickly as we continue to move other things in the background as well.
At Odienné, how many mineralizing events have there been?
That's a good early stage question. I think at least 2, maybe 3. There is definitely a progressive alteration. So the early thin section work, like the early work that we've looked at at Empire, there is potentially an early alteration, which is then overprinted by the potassic hematite magnetite alteration that we see, which is then overprinted by silica plus cerussite and all those sorts of things. And then you've also got a phase where everything cools down, and we see another mineral suite, which is epidote and other things like that. So but it's potentially all just part of that continuum. So we get, this activity has just been continuous over quite a few 100 million years, really. Semi-continuous.
With that, I would like to move into Charger. So, I mean, you have had some high-grade intercepts at Charger, but what's your thesis for Charger, and how will you what's the strategy to successfully vector into these sort of longer intercepts, higher grade, 3 to 5 grams per ton of gold?
Okay. So Charger is, I guess, with the last drilling, we recognised that we had been targeting more of a northwest orientation to mineralization, but now we've become aware that, I mean, we always knew that there were potential northeast structures from the geophysics. So next drilling will sort of try and target both those orientations. And if the northeast orientation does turn out to be the major feeders into the system, we think it's potentially where there are intersections between those northwest and those northeast that will give us some more of the good results that we have had at Charger. It has been a little bit harder to unravel, but we've got confidence in the model that we've put forward, and so some 3 or 4 holes targeting that orientation will tell us if that thesis is correct. And if that thesis is correct, then we've actually got within that space more of those northeast structures that are evidently there, that are evident in the geophysics, that we can continue to target with further drilling. It should also help us understand if we have more like pipes involved with those structural intercepts as well. So it's been a little bit harder to unravel. So we've had some holes that have shown alteration that fits the model, but they haven't had that much mineralization. And so we hope that the next round of drilling will actually start to give us some answers on those questions that we have.
If we then move over to Sceptre East, so I mean, Sceptre East is vast. It's a vast deposit, and delineating large deposits is expensive. So, firstly, what is your thesis for Sceptre East, and what is your strategy for finding these sort of higher grade mineralized structures in Sceptre East?
The deep hole that I mentioned the deeper hole, it's not that deep, that I mentioned in the presentation. So that was drilled at a different orientation to the discovery holes. It was drilled at sort of almost 90 degrees, or pretty much 90 degrees to the discovery holes. And we actually, in that drill hole, we got, I guess, a lot more visible veining in that which had a more north-south orientation. And so there is a sort of a thesis on that those might actually, in some zones, control some higher grade mineralization as well. So like you said, it is a very big area. The current thinking is that style of mineralization is, before we talked about, or polyphase or multi-phase alteration and mineralization. So the thesis on that at the moment that Sceptre East is early in the mineralization story. As well, what that means, don't know. Or what we do know is that it is a large intrusion, granodiorite intrusion, that is almost completely mineralized in disseminated mineralization plus veining. So, and then beyond that, there's always been which we reported, there is a structure, a northwest trending structure, a big one, that has quite extreme chargeability, which the one hole that has gone somewhere near that, there is quite significant sulfide mineralization, and mostly pyrite in that particular hole, but it does have chalcopyrite and pyrrhotite as well. So there is sort of a two-step idea in that we probably need to drill more holes that are in the same orientation from west to east, as well as some deeper holes that particularly target that very high chargeability. Though the chargeability on those in that geophysics is extremely high. Like it's up to the kind of chargeabilities that you actually see in more massive sulfide mineralization. So we really do need to try and fit into the budget some deeper holes into that high chargeability anomaly and see what that can deliver.
These chargeability anomalies, what depth are we talking about?
I think, they start from shallow, but they seem to broaden out and maybe a little bit higher in that chargeability deeper. So those holes would be, at least 400 to 600 meters long, deep. Looking, where your pierce points or your interception points would be sort of in that 300 plus meter vertical depth on those holes. So it's something that we're working on now, and those things that I've just mentioned, they're ideas, and the geology team on the ground are working on planning up those ideas with that deeper drilling.
With that, let's speak a little bit about BBM and Lando. I mean, so you have drill results pending. What can you tell us about BBM and Lando? And what could you also tell us about the drilling? How many meters have you drilled, and how many holes? And tell us everything you can.
I mean, BBM and Lando are both associated with the same structure. And that structure is actually what we would call a belt basin margin. And these belt basin margins, they're old and deep-seated structures that sit at the edge of more of your classic greenstone volcanic belts, and then into deep water basins so we've definitely seen evidence for that in that early drilling particularly at BBM. So at BBM, there is an intrusive body along that contact, again, granodiorite. And then at that contact, you move into water sedimentary rocks, so siltstones, very fine grained sort of greywackies or sandstones and siltstones. So the nice thing about that is, so we're seeing in that drill core, we see mineralization, sulfide mineralization sort of up to 40, 50 meters in width down hole in those early holes, sitting in the intrusive. And then also some mineralization in the footwall as well. The nature of the mineralization changes a little bit across that footwall, but we don't know what that really means until we see the results. We only drilled 4 holes there, and they're quite shallow. So we drilled 3 sections, about 500 meters apart on each of those 3 sections, with 2 holes on the middle section and then 1 hole on the step out about 500 meters to the northwest and the southeast. We saw very similar geology in all of those holes. So that's really, says that there is geological continuity, and it definitely does follow that single structure, which is really nice. I guess a geologist's dream is to drill a panel that might have plunging chutes and things like that along it. So the initial sort of feeling on BBM is pretty good. And we're pretty excited about that target as potential to deliver a new discovery. The footprint itself, as I mentioned, is at in that earlier presentation. The footprint is at least 4 kilometers long. We've since done some extension geochemistry, and it does continue to the northwest and the southwest east. So it is a big footprint, and something could be something pretty exciting. And Lando, as I mentioned, is associated with the same structure. The geology is different in that we've got sort of basalt, so basalt volcanics, and the sediments there as well. And the mineralization appears to be preferentially hosted in the basalt volcanic rocks. We see folding. We drilled 2 holes there, basically, about 200 meters apart, just to try and understand what we were actually looking at. So we'd done some surface mapping and had some broad sort of contact ideas. There's a few quartz vein breccias within that mapping. Whether they are the real fluid pathways where it's bringing that mineralization or those mineralized fluids up, we don't know until we see the results. But we certainly see folding plus sheared rocks. There's definitely a particular shear zone there as well. And when we sort of saw mineralization over maybe 20 odd meters downhole in that with, chalcopyrite, molybdenite stringer veining, so millimeter scale veining, and some brecciation as well. So they're interesting initial holes as well, and I think there should be some, there's definitely going to be copper and molybdenum mineralization there. And if there is anything like the others, we'll see some gold in there as well. But again, we need to wait and see what the tenor of those things are. But it is a big geochem footprint. The order of the footprint is high. It's plus 100 ppb gold in the footprint, which is significant, and based on our other anomalies that are delivered results, that fits into that as well. So look, I think both of those prospects are going to be interesting for us in the future. But BBM, well, both BBM and Lando, we really look forward to bringing those results to everyone hopefully in January.
Based on what you know now, where and how much are you going to drill until the next wet season, which is in June, July?
Well, we actually secured a little bit of extra joint venture funding. So that's, direct in-ground funding on top of the $3 million budget that we had. So we've actually commenced a drill program now, or just now, which will continue through the Christmas period. So we with that extra funding, we hope to drill sort of up to another 4,000 meters of diamond, and then we should get those results in Q1, and then add an additional drilling to that before the end of wet season. So coming back in sort of April, May to start drilling, some more. And I've actually got it, depending on what the budget is from Newmont, we are expecting $3 to $4 million. But I've also got percussion drilling or RC drilling budgeted for Lando and BBM and Sceptre Main as well at this stage. Not Sceptre Main, Sceptre East at this stage, to accompany a little bit more diamond drilling. So I think it's all results dependent, but at this stage for 2024, we're looking at least 10,000 meters of drilling.
And what targets are you definitely going to pursue? And what targets are you considering pursuing, but might be depending on results or the budget?
Look, yeah. So at this stage, I think I mentioned, we're sort of at that pivotal point of going into sort of resource development or resource framework drilling, and based on what we've seen at the core at BBM, we're keen to spend quite a bit of that budget at BBM. And some more, maybe 3 or 4 more scout holes at Lando as well. And then at the moment, what's did in that is actually that sort of drill testing that I mentioned before at Charger. So at the moment, the current plan is to drill that 4,000 meters at BBM, Lando, and Charger. And then when we come back a little bit later on in Q1 or early Q2, that would include budget for the follow-up drilling at Sceptre East at this stage.
And the Charger?
Well, yeah. So we'll drill those new sort of model test holes at Charger in the current round of drilling. And as I mentioned, we've got visible gold in there as well. So we know that it is continuing at depth below what we have, but we're not drilling under that straight away. We are drilling those test holes. And then that would lead into, as I mentioned, drilling deeper holes at Charger. So I think the second phase of drilling after this one in 2024 will include a lot more deeper drilling, plus I guess a lot more meters into deeper drilling, so less holes but deeper, accompanied with shallow drilling with RC.
What is your drilling cost per meter all in, both for RC and for diamond drill?
At the moment, we're doing pretty well with diamond drilling. So for the actual just the drilling cost, we're depending on the ground, we're sort of ranging between $135 and $150 an NQ drill core meter. And when we start drilling deeper holes, that will go up. We'll be sort of probably looking at pushing up towards $180, $190 a meter once you start to get beyond 300-400 meters down hole. And then for RC drilling, previously when we've RC drilled, the costs have been around about $80 to $90 US dollars a meter. Associated with that, because we have, it's polymetallic, we do full suite, sort of a 52 element ICP. And then beyond that, we also do fire assay for gold. So where the ICP crosses a grade threshold in gold, we actually do fire assay analysis as well subsequently. So our analysis cost is in the realms of sort of $50 a sample by the time we do both ICP and fire assay. So that's actually one of the blessings. It's nice to have a polymetallic system, but your analysis costs go up accordingly once you have a polymetallic system as well.
You're in the phase of beginning resource development drilling, but after that comes resource definition drilling. And what would make Newmont content to move into actually defining a resource?
I think many of these, like what we have now, has scope to produce significant size resources. So I think the sort of this round of framework drilling will help sort of kick us off into potential resource drilling toward the end of 2024. So we are going to have that sort of wet season problem from July, but we should be in a position to make those sorts of decisions at that same time as well. So that will become quite significant discussions with them at that juncture, I think. And I think post receiving results of the drilling that we've just commenced as well, those discussions will really come in earnest. And I know that, well, like I said, we're keen on the look of BBM and Lando as targets that have potential to be rapidly expanded into that sort of drilling.
At the end of next year, you should probably know which target or which deposit that you would actually like to ramp up drilling on and actually eventually produce a resource on.
Yeah, that would be the goal. Yeah, that's the ideal. That's an ideal position to be in at that juncture. Yes.
Say that you have what you believe could be a 1 million ounce gold deposit. That wouldn't really make Newmont cheer out of joy.
No, I mean they're looking for bigger things. I mean, if it's 1 million ounces at high grade, I think they'd be very happy. Yes, they are looking for bigger things, but I think they're also prepared to look at the thing look at this as a camp. So if something has the potential to deliver a couple of million ounces as an initial target, that would satisfy their initial needs with the view to bringing other prospects alongside or extending ones that we have. So that would be ideal. The ideal for us.
So, but are there any deleterious elements, or have you ever seen indications of refractory or on any of your targets?
Not deleterious elements. And the fact, like at Empire Charger, we see that that gold mineralization that we see, a lot of it is free gold. So, for example, a charger, we actually, pre Newmont, we did most of our analysis as leach well or bottle rolls, which is a cyanide extraction method for the analysis. And then, what you do is you actually do a fire assay on the tail to try and determine, how much of that it sort of is an indicator of how recoverable the gold is. And I think the average recovery at Empire was something like 94% with leach well. So those sort of tail assays were generally had almost no gold in them at all. So we haven't done the same at Charger, but at Charger we do see a lot of free gold as well. Chalcopyrite and things like that. If they're these are manageable things, and they are managed on many sites around the world. And chalcopyrite initially can sort of be a little bit it's not preg robbing. What it actually does is mean you actually have to keep adding a little bit more reagent to the circuit because of the chalcopyrite. But we don't have any evidence at the moment for cryptic or mineralization or anything like that. So where you need crush regrind circuits and things like that. But of course, as we move forward into that framework and drilling, and there will come a time potentially towards the end of 2024 where we need to be drilling enough for bulk sample for metallurgical, proper metallurgical analysis.
Could you add some color on what work has been done on these 5 other licenses? How could you acquire them? And also, what work will you do next year? You mentioned especially the one to the east, which is quite advanced.
Sure, they're purely greenfield. So the Toraka option permit, Resolute, an Australian company that Toraka actually got those permits from, have done some very broad-spaced geochemistry, and we've used that for a guide for the initial geochemistry that we've done. So there is some anomalism in that geochemistry along strike from BBM, and that's sort of where we've started. But the others, they've had no work done at all. So we will start out with stream sediment sampling, move that into soil and termite area geochemistry, and with the aim of having those as drill ready targets in it will be it's probably more likely Q1 to have some drill ready targets on those in 2025. And as far as sort of getting those permits granted, now that we've done that housekeeping that I've talked about, I feel comfortable with where the company is, and we will look to position ourselves with the DGMG to start pushing on granting of at least 2 of those permits along strike to start with, and just progressively move along with that as we go. So we'll be in the new year we'll be pushing and in more discussion with the ministry about getting those permits granted.
You don't expect to drill it next year, rather that's a 2025.
Well, that one may, like I said, we're working on geochem as a long strike from BBM, and so there is potential there, and it has had some initial work done. So there is potential there that might be brought on a little bit more rapidly. And of course, when you're exploring, sometimes you come across things that you think warrant some early drill holes. But it's sort of, for me, it's very much proven in what we've done on the joint venture permits that you need. I've always liked to be holistic in our thinking about how we go about our exploration business, and making sure that you're putting forth the high quality targets for drilling. So I would prefer not to find ourselves in a position where we've not had that holistic approach and are not necessarily putting forward the best targets for that drilling.
I mean, once Newmont takes its 51% ownership of the Odienné project, will you continue as operator?
At the moment, the discussions are yes. that there is no intent on them taking over. So that's all I can say on that now. I suspect if things really move into a resource development phase, they might be better equipped to be doing that than us, rather than us using all our resources to manage a feasibility study. We view ourselves as earlier stage explorers and discoverers rather than sort of managing feasibility studies. So, but that discussion is somewhere down the track. But at the moment, the idea is that we'll have an exploration budget for 2024 that helps or pushes us towards that stage.
The final pillar of Awale's investment case is about the company's strategy going forward. We'll, among others, touch on Cote d'Ivoire as a mining jurisdiction, financing, and Andrew's vision for the company. How is Cote d'Ivoire as a mining jurisdiction?
Look, I think it's good. The mining code is sound. We've seen other companies develop or are in a project development stage. Tieto's brought their deposit online and started pouring gold. Same has happened with Rox Gold, Fortuna at Seguila. Endeavour Mining has brought other things online. Perseus got Yarra up and running. So there is definitely the framework there to once you get to that stage, it's not difficult to move into that production. And it is a major economic centre for West Africa. So the ports are first class, like they're first class ports to be bringing in the equipment that you need for that infrastructure. The roads are good, and so supply line and all that sort of stuff is very good as well. Politically, in the last 12, 13 years, they've really got themselves together. The last election went well. There's an expectation that the 2025 election will go well as well. And so there is quite large macro plans for Cote d'Ivoire around the infrastructure, roads, power supply, all those sorts of things as well. So there is a really good macro vision for the country as well. So, I think it's a very good jurisdiction to be in.
How is permitting? How difficult is it? Both exploration and exploitation permits.
There is a process that's outlined, and if you follow that process, you can get your applications through. And once your applications are through, they get put on the mining cadastre. And and then you go through a process of passing a minerals committee, and once you're past the minerals committee, you actually get a permit number. If you looked at that online today, you would see that Odienné West permit. We do have a PR or a permit number for that ready for when the minister actually signs off on the decree. So. There have been, honestly, there have been some delays in that process from getting that minerals committee sort of passing to the actual ministerial sign off. And potentially that's through some reshuffles they've had and things like that. But, the process is there, and we have confidence that permit will be granted. And then, with us, in deeper discussion about getting the other permits to that phase, I have confidence that will follow, particularly for us, because we have been spending, a not insignificant amount of money on developing the Odienné district.
With that, you just closed the Newmont financing. Very good to get that right before Christmas. So. How are you thinking in terms of raising money next year?
Oh, look, so then we come back to sort of more organic discussions with potential investors and potentially other strategics that may have interest in the 100% Awalé projects. and hopefully we bring through some good results in January, and I think the fact that Newmont is showing confidence in the project that and through that in the district, that people will start to see that, and we should be able to get some significant investment in Awalé. And look, I think from we've been talking about it for a while, but there are various things going on at the moment that sort of bode well for gold, and the fact that we've got some copper too. I think from that sort of broader macro perspective in the market, I think 2024 could be a good year for growth from that perspective as well.
Where do you envision Awalé Resources in 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, we would have liked to have actually be in a development, or be part of a development stage on the joint venture, as still as as an interest in that, and hopefully have continued to be a major player in the Odienné district, because we do believe it's got a lot of potential in the 100% Awalé properties along strike, and also through that be well positioned for other opportunities that may arise. Like I think if we're a successful company in Cote d'Ivoire, there could be other potential opportunities, not just in Cote d'Ivoire as well, but potentially other places too. But the key would be to have something in development, or there has been a buyout of the joint venture project. So Newmont has actually decided to take on the joint venture project in its entirety.